Alright, this is the video for assignment 10. The first part of it for geometry. The first part of this video I'm going to go through sort of quickly, talk about measures of angles. We've always measured angles in degrees, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's other ways to measure angles. You know, we've always said like 50 degrees, so on and so on. There's other ways to measure angles, and I'm just going to talk about those very quickly. None of the assignment has anything to do with any of these ways that I'm going to talk about measuring the angles. It's just stuff that you should probably know as you move along. Alright, so the first one, we use degrees, but another unit that you can use to measure angles is radians. And as you get into higher level maths or higher level sciences, you'll use radians a lot. Most of you are used to thinking of a circle in terms of degrees, so like 360 degrees is a circle, 180 is half the circle. Well, radian measure is just a different way of talking about the circle, and not just circles, talking about angles also. It's just a different way to talk about it. Radian measure is just a different unit of measurement, so it's just a different unit. There's a simple formula to convert radians to degrees. So to convert radians to degrees, 1 pi radian equals 180 degrees. That's supposed to be a degree symbol. I don't know how it got down there. Therefore, you can easily convert them. And I've got this formula right here. The general formula for degrees to radians is just simply multiply the number of degrees by pi. That should say divided by 180. This is how it is right here. Alright, so this is the formula. Sorry, my notes here are messed up. I'm going to have to fix them. So with radians, and again, we're not going to do any of this. I just want you to see it so you have some idea about it for the future. All you're going to do for radians, if you want your answer in radians, is take the angle measure, times it by pi over 180. As you do this, that's going to change it into radians. As you do it, and probably when you're dealing with radians, you're going to give the answers differently. Here in geometry, we've given everything just in a number form. You're probably going to leave it in terms of pi. Just like we talked a little about leaving a radical as the square root of 2, or a fraction as 1/3 instead of changing everything into decimal form. It's the same thing here. A lot of times if you have pi, if you're dealing with circles or radians or any of this other stuff, and you have pi in the formula, you just want to leave it in terms of pi so that it's an exact answer. So on this one, all I'm going to do, if we want to change 45 degrees into radians, I'm going to put in 45 times pi over 180. And all you really do with this is you take 45 times the pi, so 45 pi divided by 180, and just like when we talked about the radicals assignment or two ago, we want to leave the pi alone, but we can reduce this, the 45 over 180. So if you take your calculator, whichever calculator you have, if you have the smaller calculator, then you can use the ABC button. If I have the big calculator and I want to do 45, let's clear all this, 45 divided by 180, but I want to leave it as a fraction, not as a decimal, but as a fraction. I hit the math button, first one says fraction, hit enter, and it tells me 1 over 4. So what this reduces to is 1 pi, so 1 times pi over 4, or just pi over 4. That's how many radians a 45 degree angle is. If we were going to do the same thing, if we do a 60 degree angle, I do 60 times pi over 180. And I'm doing these two just because these are real common ones. So you got 60 pi on top, you got 180 on bottom. Again, you just reduce this down. Some of you might just be able to reduce it down in your head. 60 will go into 60 once, so that just leaves pi on top. 60 will go into 180, 3 times. So 60 degrees is the same as pi over 3 radians. And this up here was radians also. So that's just a quick overview. All you're doing, multiplying your degrees by pi over 180, and that'll tell you the degrees in, the measure in radians of that certain angle. So you could say it's a 60 degree angle, or you could say it's a pi over 3 angle. The reason I'm telling you this is on your calculators, and make sure on all of them, I'll show you on the other one, on the smaller ones too, but on your calculators, what we're getting ready to do, you have to make sure that you go into the mode button. So go to mode and make sure that your calculator, you see right here, this third line down, mine is on degrees. So if you have the big calculator, you go into it and you go down to that third one and you make sure it's on degrees. Make sure degrees is blackened in. Because if you don't do this on your calculator, everything that we're going to do on this calculator, it's going to be in radians and it's going to be giving you the wrong answer. So when we get to doing a couple of problems here later, check your calculator and make sure that it's doing it correctly and you're getting the same answer I'm getting. Otherwise, you're going to be doing everything incorrect. Now, you won't be doing it incorrect, I'm sorry. Your calculator will be giving you the wrong answer, not the answer that we want. If you have the other calculator, if you have like the TI-30, clear that off. If you go into this top button right here, it says DRG. So that DRG button, it's right under the screen. You push it and you'll notice it comes up degrees, radians, and then GRD, which is gradians, which you won't have to deal with. So if we want our answer in degrees, then we want that one to be underlined. So if yours isn't in degrees, if it doesn't say degrees right here and it's underlined, you need to scroll over until you get to the degrees and hit enter. And then the other thing on these calculators, and it's hard to see, but if you look right here at the bottom, it says DEG. That tells you that it is in degrees. If it was in radians, somebody's messing with you and they've changed it to radians, then you'd see RAD at the bottom. So if you see RAD at the bottom, then your calculator is going to be doing everything wrong. You need the other one. So let's go back. We need the DR or DEG, not DRG. DEG at the bottom of the screen here. So make sure that's what your calculator says. If you have the Casio or something else, then same idea. If you have one of the calculators that doesn't print across the screen, if it's one of the old calculators, if you have a calculator like this that doesn't print across the screen, if when you punch in like 5 plus 2, it doesn't print out all that. It just tells you just the answer. It just prints out one number at a time. You're going to have to make sure, again, same thing, it's probably got a mode button on it. A bunch of them are different, but you're going to have to do things a little backwards, what we're going to do in this lesson. If you have the Casio, if I turn on this Casio, if we go to the mode buttons right here at the top, sorry, I had to figure out on the Casio. So if you go to the mode buttons right here on the top, but what you want to do is hit shift mode, and then you want to make sure, oops, see at number 3, we want to push 3 because we want it to be in degrees. So make sure it's on that. I think my eyes aren't good enough, but I think it shows a little D right there at the top of the screen if it's in degrees. Let's try something here. Let's go back to this and let's go to radians. See, now it's showing a little R up there at the top. We don't want that little R. We want the D. So I'm going to go back and put it in degrees. So make sure it's in degrees. Make sure that little D's up there at the very top, right there towards the middle. Alright, so that's this part. Another thing, if you're trying to change from radians into degrees, then all we do is we take the angle measure in radians times 180 divided by pi. And this time we're going to want a number, so we'll probably just change it. So on this, if our radians is pi over 2, we're just going to take pi over 2 times 180 over pi. And what happens here is this pi and this pi just cancel each other out, and you're left with just 180 divided by 2. Well, 180 divided by 2 is just 90. So a 90-degree angle and a pi over 2 radians angle is the exact same thing, just two different ways to measure it. So again, none of this is going to be on the assignment. These just two things I wanted to go over quickly, and I wanted to tell you about the calculators, making sure that your calculators are in degrees. This next thing's not going to be on the assignment either. Degrees could be split up into minutes and seconds, just like a clock. So it's just like a clock. You could measure it in degrees, 360, but then also on the clock, in between each of those numbers, it's split up into minutes, and then it's not on the clock, but each of those minutes is split, or every minute is also split up into seconds. That's the same thing on a protractor. On a protractor, I have this little half protractor right here. Each of these little marks actually has 60 marks in between them, which are minutes, and 60 marks in between every one of those, which are seconds. So, and again, this isn't going to be on the assignment. I just want to show it to you to try to give you some idea how to deal with degrees, minutes, and seconds. If you see a angle, it might not just be written 45 degrees. It might be written 45 degrees, 32 minutes. This is a minute symbol, just a little one tick mark, and then maybe 17 seconds. So this is red, 45 degrees, 32 minutes, 17 seconds. Just another way to measure angles. It's a little more precise than just saying 45 degrees. So if I wanted to change this into degrees, minutes, and seconds, the 52 is your degrees. That's going to stay the same. The minutes and the seconds, what you're going to have to do is you take your calculator. I'm going to use this one. And you take the decimal part. So here it's 0.738. And times it by 60. If I could hit the right buttons. And I get 44.28. The 44, that's the minutes part. So this is saying 52 degrees, 44 minutes. Then we still got the 0.28. We times that by 60 for the seconds. So 0.28 times 60. Not 6.0, 60, and we get 16.8, or I'm going to round that up to 17. So all of this means the same thing as 52 degrees, 44 minutes, and 17 seconds. Again, none of that has anything to do with the lesson or the assignment for assignment 10. And I'm going to post this video, and I'm going to post another video for that goes along with how to do assignment 10. So, but that's something I wanted to show you.